Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Could we all begin to go back to our seats, please? Yes. So I thought Rahmat will go first, and then Olav, and you will go third. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, and then Gita, the closer. Over a few notes yesterday. I sent over a few notes yesterday to you. Did you get those?
I integrated it every day.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Adam Schwarz with McKinsey and Company, and I am honored to moderate our next panel of the afternoon. Following the excellent speech by President Wirjawan, we have a wonderful panel, not only because of the importance of the topic, but because of the wealth of experience and knowledge of our panelists. The topic of our panel is scaling up investment and regional cooperation to deliver green economy solutions. And I think we all know and we all recognize that to upgrade to the so-called next generation of sustainable economic growth will require an unprecedented level of investment and indeed an unprecedented level of cooperation and collaboration between government, the business community, and civil society organizations. It is a daunting task and an exciting one, but one with many, many challenges for all involved. We could hardly have asked for a better, more experienced and distinguished panel to take on the different elements of this challenge. I'd like to now introduce our panel, and then we can begin our session. We're going to begin the panel with Pak Rahmat Witoelar, Indonesia's Special Envoy for Climate Change and the Executive Chairman of Indonesia's National Council on Climate Change. To my far right, and going second on our panel today, is Mr. Olav Kjørven, who is the Assistant Secretary General and Director of the Bureau of Development Policy at the United Nations Development Program. To my right is Pak Governor Teras Narang, the recently re-elected governor of Central Kalimantan Province. And the governor, Kalimantan Tengah, and who is also recently been selected as the pilot province of the Indonesia-Norway REDD+ partnership. And finally, who is not here, but I think who all of you probably know anyway, is Pak Gita Wirjawan, who is the chairman of the National Investment Coordinating Board, BKPM. He hopefully will join us without much further delay. So with that as introduction, let me just lay out a couple of 2 or 3 questions with which to frame our discussion today. The first one is, how can we increase investments in green economy solutions? We all recognize that a lot of investment is needed. What is it that's standing between that investment being spent and dispersed? Number 2, what role should governments play in facilitating investments and creating incentives? How many incentives and what kinds of incentives are needed to promote the sort of investments that we all recognize are needed? And finally, how can we spur more regional and international cooperation, both in terms of technical and financial assistance and flows, to drive more investment in this sector? So with that as a few guiding principles, let me now ask Pak Rahmat if you would share with us your opening remarks.
Thank you, Adam. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the organizers of this conference for launching a very productive and very important event in Indonesia. And I'm proud that we are hosting this because I'm aware that the B4E has been around for a very long time. Adam has introduced me as the Special Envoy of Climate Change of the President. Of course, being such, you it is not strange that I voice the same sentiments as the President, because I'm his envoy anyway. I would like to delineate more in more detail in that context, and also put it in your context, in the frame of your question, which is how can we promote the growth of the businesses. First of all, we all have heard, and I think it is a very logical paradigm, that to work and to promote the growth of businesses, the importance is that the businesses are trusted to be present in any such country. And the President has expressly said that Indonesia has a political will to promote businesses that has environment in its mind. That is why Indonesia, besides of the three-pronged principles of growth, has added the environmental principle. Having said that, then it is very logical also that any of the businesses that deal in environmentally sound businesses will be supported by the country, and facilitations will be given to those who are in the business of environmentally sound businesses. And for that purpose, I think it is just another step that government regulations will also be more lenient to those who are in a friendly business. Maybe that is one of the statements I would like to put forward. And second is that also Indonesia, having been involved in the negotiations in the UNFCCC, we are aware that the world will look very kindly upon those businesses who are in charge of also pushing business-friendly, population-friendly techniques. I think the UNFCCC is in place to put that and give a favor to the businesses that have that in mind. And for one of the questions, the second question that Adam has put forward is that it is only talking if we do not have sound examples. And in this respect, I would not take the words of Pak Narang, who will explain for himself. But we are very proud that we are making headway into walking the talk. We propose to do things and we do the things, and the prime example is in central Kalimantan, where Pak Narang is governor. I think as we go on, we can go more deep into that. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Pak Rahmat. Let me now turn to Mr. Olav Kjørven, Assistant Secretary General of the UNDP. Olav.
Well, thank you very much, Adam. It's indeed a great pleasure and an honor to be here at this conference in Indonesia and to have the chance to participate in this conversation with all of you. And the topic couldn't be more topical and important. Indonesia is really one epicenter in kind of the global drama that is unfolding every day now around the world in terms of the path to choose. We're at the crossroads. We can choose to continue down along the same trajectory of resource-intensive and fundamentally destructive ways to earn a living and grow economies, or we can decide to take a different path, which is the sustainable and green development and growth path. And it goes without saying that that will not succeed unless there is a partnership at so many different levels between governments and the private sector and civil society. And I'll actually start in Egypt, of all places. Because if you think about it, what happened there? After several decades of basically fundamentally status quo, nothing really changed. All of a sudden something happened. and it was an enormous mobilization of civil society, of people who decided that something had to change fundamentally in their country in order to put it on a better track. Interestingly, one of the really key strategic leaders of that whole movement was a Google executive. And it's, I think, an illustration of why we are here. The fact that in order for fundamental change to happen, the private sector cannot simply sit back and wait for governments to put better regulations in place. Civil society can't wait for government to do all the right things. And government cannot just sit and blame the private sector for doing all the wrong things. Somehow there has to be a stepping up to the responsibility in all major segments of society. And that is also very, very true for what we're facing globally and at the national level when it comes to finding that better path towards a green, sustainable, and secure and inclusive future for all. Now, governments, of course, have a fundamentally important role to play because only governments can directly set the rules of the game. They can do that at the global level by agreeing to rules of the game at the global level. That's what the UNFCCC process, for instance, is all about, the UN, the United Nations. And of course, at the national level, only governments can set the laws, the regulations, and the policies that can lead to change. Now, governments do not always do that. There's enormous amounts of reasons for why governments aren't always able to change course fundamentally in an economic trajectory. A lot of vested interests everywhere, resistance to change in bureaucracies and so on. And certainly, very often, we see this all over the world, real change requires culture change in government institutions at national and subnational levels. And by the way, the subnational level is as important as the national in many ways. And it's fascinating that here in Indonesia, there is a growing recognition of the importance of bringing that kind of change process into the way government operates at all levels. And this is not a uniquely Indonesian need, it's a need that we see everywhere. We see it in rich countries, we see it in developing countries all over the world. The civil society, I want to mention that too, because here in Indonesia, you have this, it's so unique that I really want to bring it up. You have these religious, these Islamic social movements, organizations, really committed to improving the lives of people throughout the country. And they have, if I understand correctly, 2 of them have more than 100 million members. And in this country, these organizations have decided that they are going to push strongly for a different trajectory also when it comes to environment and climate change and reducing deforestation. That's an enormous asset base that Indonesia has that you don't find in the same way in most other countries. And it's very, very interesting and exciting to see that. And then finally, and last but not least, of course, again, back to the private sector. That's where the innovation is going to come from. When it comes to the technologies and solutions that can help us move the change process forward. The palm oil sector in this country should have an enormously important role to play in shifting the whole trajectory when it comes to forests and deforestation or towards a more sustainable path. And we in UNDP, we are quite convinced that that could happen. As long as the government is clear that it intends to set different rules of the game, to fundamentally alter the incentives, which only governments can. RED Plus offers a fantastic opportunity for that. And as we've seen in Brazil, once there is a clear signal that the rules of the game are about to change, behavior changes immediately. And here, the private sector can and should be part of this, and rather than sort of waiting for change to happen, to do as Mr. Ghonim did in Egypt, stand up and show leadership and make it happen. Ultimately, That's what brings about the really most difficult and the most worthwhile changes that we need in society today. Thank you.
Olav, thank you very much for those remarks. Let me turn to our Gita is here. Great. Let me, as he gets mic'd up, welcome Gita to our panel. I'll give him a little breather to collect his thoughts, but welcome to the panel. Let me now turn to Teras Narang, Governor of Kalimantan Tengah. Look forward to hearing your remarks, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to introduce about the Kalimantan Tengah. I think it's easy for me to say Kalimantan Tengah, not Central Kalimantan. Right? Kalimantan Tengah is the third largest province in Indonesia, with total area about 15.36 million hectares, or about 1.5 of Java Island. The province, Kalimantan Tengah, mostly covered by forests, and also Kalteng, Kalimantan Tengah, has about 750 kilometers coastal lines. And we really give a full support, and we really appreciate for our president, especially about for his vision for our economy to be powered by strong regional growth, and his commitment to reduce greenhouse gases emission, the 726 commitment. And 726 commitment is a simple and clear message to our people that needs to be realized through strong commitment and also collaboration by whole stakeholders. In my capacity as the recently elected governor of Kalimantan Tengah, I really have many dreams for Kalteng, for Indonesia, and also for the world. Sustainable economic growth is at the core of this mission. We want to create an attractive environment for business and economic growth while ensuring the well-being of our communities and the preservation of our natural resources. Of course, to balance the profits, people, and planet. We call it 3 Ps. Of course, in the real work. Kalimantan Tengah, we have a bad experience, but we have to learn. We have to learn from the last 30 years, our past experience and mistakes. It has proven that our timber resources or green gold era has failed to boost and to sustain our economic growth, as well as improving the well-being of our communities. The past timber exploitive approach has created negative impacts up to current periods in terms of vast areas of critical lands, forest degradation, and deforestation. In addition, our communities receive less benefits from the green gold era. And we have also a bad experience, the failed 1 million hectares peatland project. It's not only failure in achieving its goal to boost up our national rice production, but it has also created negative impacts in terms of economic growth, socio-culture, and environmental to Kalimantan Tengah. Although our president has tried his best to rehabilitate and to revitalize this 1 million hectares abandoned land by the enactment of a presidential instruction number 2, year 2007. But this political will receive lack of support from related ministries and agencies. The project creates problems such as flood during the wet season and land fires during the dry period. And Bang Rahmat had experience for that. For a new vision for now, I have already talked about the Kalimantan Tengah, and I have already talked also about our bad experience. Now, please, I will try to make a new vision for Kalimantan Tengah development. Development vision must integrate and balancing 3-in-1 aspects. That is profit for growth, people, and planet. Kalimantan Tengah has tried and started to integrate the 3Ps principle into our development programs since 2006. So now we are start from zero. We have a green government policy. We have also green and clean province programs. And 7% economic growth and 26% reduction in greenhouse gases are not separate goals, but two parts of a single vision for our future. The following initiatives are on the investment pipelines. We are in the planning of constructing a railway network from Puruk Chahu, Murung Raya district to Bangkuang, so it's Barito district, as first stage development with total length of approximately 185 kilometers. Furthermore, in August this year, 2011, the contractor will be elected through the tender process. This railway network is intended to hold coal commodity, where Kalimantan Tengah coal is recognized with a very high coal calorie or cooking coal. Apart from to hold coal product, the railway will also provide transportation service for other products such as gold, iron ore, quartz, and so on. And also, in collaboration with ICVL, International Coal Venture Private Limited from India, before 3 months ago, we have signed a memorandum of understanding in India. Kalimantan Tengah now on the planning to build a steel factory together with its supporting facilities, including seaport. And the feasibility study is currently being conducted in order to examine this new project. Okay. As a closing statement, we will need to do many things in Kalimantan Tengah to make sustainable growth as a reality. And to close my session by highlight few most important points as follows. I will be committed to create an attractive environment for businesses by ensuring the business community has access to accurate data about our province, including, for example, what non-forested land is available for cultivation. Improve our planning processes to ensure we are on a path of sustainable growth where we make effective use of our natural resources while preserving them for our future generation. Create better environment and equal opportunities for the engagement of whole stakeholders in accessing and to benefiting from our existing natural resources, and ensuring implementation in the REDD+ related area, the graded land and peatland restoration as potential area in agroforestry scheme. I I assure to provide special incentive and permits relief for those investors which are seriously implemented and integrated our aforementioned sustainable fashion, of course, supporting by Pak Gita and from a central government. And of course, from all of you. Thank you very much. May God bless.
Governor, thank you very much for those excellent remarks. Pak Gita, Governor Narang has introduced a new definition of PPP, profits, people, and planet.
Right.
We have, in reaching the 726 dual goals. As someone who's spends time in the old definition of PPP, perhaps we could ask for your thoughts on how to promote more investment into green economy solutions.
What was the last letter for again? Profits?
Planet.
Planet.
People, profits, and planet.
Oh, wow.
People,
Okay.
profit.
Okay, I got to learn that one. Thank you, Adam. I think if we were to take a look at the investment trend thus far, it's quite encouraging in where the money is going. We have been advocating for the last, 16, 17 months about encouraging more and more smart capital to come into Indonesia. And if we were to take a look at the figures for last year, we were able to realize about $23 billion worth of PMA and PMDN. Those are basically foreign and domestic companies. If you peel the onion a little bit more, out of the 23 billion, 17 billion, give and take, was in PMA, which is the foreign sourced investments. Peel it a little bit more, out of the 17 billion, only 2.2 billion went into mining. Okay, and traditionally, mining has been perceived as a sector that does not get too friendly with the environment. I would have thought that that number would have been much bigger than 2.2 billion out of the 17 billion. So the rest of the $17 billion is actually going into the purposes of building roads, logistics, manufacture, agriculture, and all that. So I think people on the selling side or on the investee side, I think are getting more and more educated about where Indonesia needs to go in terms of establishing a proper trajectory towards a green economy. And I think it would be good also if more and more of the private investors would play the role of educating people in helping Indonesia with that trajectory. If you take a look at how the investment money is going to come to Indonesia, we can talk about the REDD for quite a while, but I think Adam and Pak Teras, Pak Rahmat, you would be most knowledgeable in terms of how many people in Indonesia still are not as educated about the issue as you would want them to be. And I think there is an increasing trend already in terms of the number of people that get it more and more. But a much more rudimentary pool of capital or destination of capital for purposes of establishing that trajectory towards a green economy, I think is that going to the renewable energy. And we are seeing, I think, pretty significant amount of interest into the geothermal. Now, Indonesia's being or representing about 40% of the global resource in geothermal, I think should be put a lot of premium on. And I think people in Indonesia, in various parts of the government, various parts outside the government, are putting a lot of premium on this. The fact is, not much money has gone into it yet. But I think as we basically go around making sure that there's an alignment of thinking between the governors, the bupatis, or amongst the governors and bupatis and members of the central government, I think there's a significant value unleashing that could take place within the sector. And we are actually testifying to that, in that so many investors from different parts of the world, and also from Indonesia, are coming to our office to register their interest, to put in hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, into play. My guess is out of the total potential or resource that's available in Indonesia, probably less than 2% of that has been realized in terms of actual investments. So I think that's the first concrete step that BKPM will have to take to make sure that the money is going to the right place for purposes of building this trajectory towards a green economy in Indonesia, beyond which, until or at the time when I think a larger or a much larger scale of people become knowledgeable of how we should actually properly package the transactions or the investment thesis for anybody in this world to be putting money into play for purposes of reducing gas emission in Indonesia, I think we will see a significant unleashing of value in the REDD sector. But I'm quite confident that within the pool of capital that's coming to Indonesia, more and more percentage is not only going to places outside Java, but I think more and more percentage of that pool of capital is going to go to a much more green-centric destination.
Thank you very much. That's the sign at your time. Let me, before opening up to the audience for any questions, maybe if I could pose one or two questions first to the panel, maybe one kind of at the global level and one locally. Maybe Olav and Rahman on the first one. In the red space and with regard to the international negotiations, one often hears complaints from business that they have been left out of the process, or they have a relatively small role in shaping the solution when everyone recognizes they're going to have a very big role in actually implementing the solution. That has reduced over the years, but I think it's still one still hears it. And particularly in the red space, obviously the private sector has a very large role to play. In the thinking and the shaping of international red finance or support for red projects, I'd be interested both from Rahman, your perspective in terms of what Indonesia is looking for from the international community to provide effective financial support for the red purpose, and maybe Olav, you could share with us your thoughts, kind of how the thinking is evolving at the international stage, at the global stage, about how we get away from a public sector sort of ODA mindset to think how we bring the private sector into play in a very constructive way. Do you want to just maybe ask you to start on that side?
Sure. Well, thank you. No, I think this is really interesting because you're totally right that the mindset of how we have been globally thinking about how to approach climate change has been very influenced by the fact that the international corporation has very much operated within this ODA way of doing business, which is fundamentally predominantly about public-to-public resource transfers. But we are seeing an enormous change underway in this, and new and innovative ways to do it very differently. CDM was an imperfect but still a very important sort of early pilot of what is now underway in many ways. And look at what's happening in the red area. I have to say, largely thanks to the leadership of one country, Norway. Norway has had the guts to put in place a totally new scheme, right? Where basically saying that if a country can show results in reducing emissions, Indonesia, Brazil, the money will flow, but it's based on performance. And who's going to take care of that performance? Of course, governments have a very important role to play in terms of rules of the game, but it's really the private sector that has to deliver. And it's that very powerful match of changing rules of the game or even expectations, signals to the private sector, and then the private sector needs to show leadership, of course, in making it happen. And I think this is what we are seeing to greater and greater extent today. Now, the simplest way I have in terms of picturing what are we really trying to do here is, and now I'm talking also beyond red, the emissions curve still looks like this, right? And this, in essence, is the biggest global challenge we face under the sun today, how to bend that curve. And what that means is basically that the enormous amounts of money that we are spending and will spend in coming years and decades, mainly money in the markets and in and through private sectors, all that money has to find a new direction. As much as possible away from the high carbon solutions towards the low carbon solution, away from the destructive ways of doing business in mining, etc., towards the more responsible ways of doing business. And what is going to bring about that shift? It is, again, through changes in the rules of the game and the incentives that have to be provided, but coupled with, because the private sector really can't afford to sit on the sideline and wait anymore, and not that everyone has done that, but to really show leadership and create the new opportunities and new the new areas of profit and growth by showing and proving that it is possible to, in fact, develop products and services of totally different kinds than we've seen in the past. And it's that very powerful combination of enlightened policy and enlightened search for opportunity and innovation that will, end of the day, break that trend and move that curve in a safer direction for all of us on this planet.
Great, thank you very much. Robert, would you like to address this question?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to approach this from a slightly different angle. If we talk about the curtailing of lowering the emissions, we have heard the President repeating his commitment that Indonesia is committed to lowering voluntarily the emissions, national emissions of 26% and 41% with additional international funding. In that respect, I think I would like to put forward the paradigm that if we talk about reducing emissions, we are not only talking about the mitigation of the climate change phenomena, but also on the adaptation part of the people who are suffering from that. Because actually, mitigation and adaptation towards climate change is actually the same thing. Because if you do not take care of the people and to alleviate their poverty, they will pollute. So essentially, in curtailing the emissions actually is how to elevate the people from their poverty. And that is, I think, maybe the major part of the businesses here. It is lowering emissions is not only planting trees or having a system where you have a CCS. It is to empower people for them to do their part and then to live comfortably so they can, in their part, also contribute to this lowering of emissions. We are aware, and it has been mentioned, even the President was said just an hour ago, that not only the government, but everybody should be part of the effort. And I would enlarge upon that the most important part is the empowerment of people to participate in that. So it is not 2 or 3 million people of the government like Gita here in the bureaucracy, or the businesses, maybe 20 or 30 million. It is the 200 million people who have to take part of that. The government is in charge to regulate, to give direction. And in that respect, I think we all should be optimistic because Indonesia has committed itself into the right path in trying to pursue the health of the planet, also to ensure that Indonesia goes in the same direction. So in that respect, I think the REDD is only part of that. And we are very happy that we have a very big ally, so Ambassador Holm here, who is representing Norway as an example of working together between the developed and developing nations. And I think that is how we should approach this. Togetherness in the scope of national as well as international community. Thank you. Thank you.
We don't have a lot of time left, but I wonder if I could maybe just ask one more question, a bit more specific, to the governor and Pak Gita, if we have time, very, very briefly to get your response. The president spent quite a lot of time in his speech on the very important topic of how to get more economic use out of already degraded land, non-forested land, as going forward for cultivation of important crops. You have been governor for 5+ years now. As you mentioned in your remarks, Kalteng has a lot of degraded land. What are the challenges you face, I guess, or maybe the most important challenges, probably quite a lot of them, for improving access to degraded land for business? And on the flip side, Pak Gita, is there thinking on the national government side to provide incentives of some kind so that we do see better and more use of degraded land?
Yes, thank you. I agree with the Rahmat. It's very important point is people, and also we together with government. And for example, like our capacity as a pilot province for RED Plus implementation. Now we are start to socialize for our people, and also we together with the business, private sector especially, we work together, and also with you, Madam. We also work together in order how to make it more better, because in my opinion, to reduce emission, not only for the Kalimantan Tengah or for the Indonesia, but for the world. So, in this occasion, I would like to invite all of you to come together with us. And that is why to Ambassador from Norway, I said that this is not my province, but this our province. And I told to you, Mr. Adam, we are in one boat. We are in one boat, and we have to sail. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gita, would you like to add?
Adam, you got
He dropped his mic, sir.
Hello?
There you go. You're back.
Adam, you know what we have been doing the past year. We have been advocating for a more proactive fiscal view-taking. And this basically dovetails back to our road investment roadmap. And our investment... Hello? Okay. This basically tails back to our investment roadmap, where we would like to basically tap into the low-hanging fruits, thereafter building the basic infrastructure, soft or hard, then taking the country to a much more industrialized one, beyond which we can start positioning Indonesia as a knowledge economy. Okay. I think we've succeeded to the extent that we have been able to convince people, the right people in the government, as to take on more proactive fiscal view for purposes of not just incentivizing smart money to be put into the right places, but also disincentivizing. I don't disagree with your notion of perhaps considering, doing some kind of an incentive system for anybody to do anything good on a degraded piece of land for the benefit of the welfare of the people. But I think, to be quite realistic about it, we've got to be very, very proactive in basically socializing this cost. Because as it is, it took us almost a year just to make sure that some people in the government get it about doing some kind of an investment tax allowance for somebody to do something that's pioneering, innovative, job creating, and making sure that that money, does not just take place in the island of Java. Because, people like Teras Narang, he would like a lot more money to be coming into the central part of Kalimantan, but it is seductive for anybody with money to just be coming to Java because it's got the most amount of infrastructure in terms of water supply, roads, airports, and all that. So I think, the president is serious about making sure that there is a better utilization of a degraded land. But I think we've also got to be serious and proactive about the use of incentives and disincentives from a fiscal standpoint also, whether it is central or regional, for purposes of shaping the behavior of people that we want them to.
Great, thank you very much. Let me now open up to the audience for questions. We have a few minutes left, but we probably have time for one or two questions, if there are any. And if I could ask you to identify the institution you're with, and hopefully to keep your questions reasonably short and targeted to somebody on the panel. Are there any questions? In the back, please. A mic, please.
Thanks. Alex McGilvery from Climate Business, and this is a question to, I think, a couple of you on the panel. The experience with the clean development mechanism in Indonesia, I think, is instructive. When you look at the 150, 200 projects that have gone through that system in the last few years, the track record of the 33 provinces is very different in Indonesia in terms of attracting those projects and developing them successfully. Some provinces have developed no projects at all. So the question in terms of, and when you compare the project density with the Human Development Index from UNDP, you don't find that the projects are going to the provinces that most need development. So the question is, for the next phase, what mechanisms can be really effective in targeting the next round of climate-friendly development projects to the provinces that most need them?
Olav, do you want to start off with that one?
Yeah, sure. I think that's an excellent observation. And in a sense, Indonesia is a microcosm of what has happened globally, right? Where a few middle-income countries have sort of run away with the prize and leaving the least developed countries completely behind. It has improved a little bit over the last year or so, but not that much. So we've certainly learned a few lessons, and when it comes to what the future climate finance regime must look like, it has to be different. The CDM was very much designed top-down, of course, by negotiators, bureaucrats, and you almost think the more you look at it, it was almost designed to be inaccessible. Somehow it has still somehow worked and delivered some very good results where people have been able to access it. So there are some very valuable lessons there. But, it was Bill Clinton who said that it's difficult to build a skyscraper from the top down. And I think the mistake we made over the years, not only in this area, but in the climate area in general, has been that we design things in the stratosphere without really thinking about how our countries and communities, provinces, gonna make use of this. So I think as we move forward towards Durban and beyond, we really have to design the instruments with that in mind. It has to work from the perspective of the broadest range possible of countries, and so that actors at the subnational level, be it private sector, public sector, can actually make use of it. And that's a big test now as the global community discusses the architecture of climate finance. A lot of people are, again, looking at it. It's going to look good from the global perspective, elegant, right? And we're going to use some instruments we are familiar with. Well, if you really want to make it work, you got to look at it from the bottom up, from the country perspective. Certainly, we need more sectoral approaches. We need to streamline this thing quite a lot in order for it to become more readily available. We need capacity development at a massive scale, because in most countries at the subnational level, this is a black hole. There's very, very limited capacity. And finally, governments, both national and subnational, really need to get going in putting in place low carbon, climate resilient development strategies and plans with really looking sector by sector and across areas. What can we do, what must we do to make our development prospects better and more climate resilient? What do we need to do to be able to actually access, combine and sequence different sources of finance? And we as development agencies, whether it's development banks or in the UN system, we really have to focus in on this. If we don't, we're not serious about sustainable development.
May I take a few seconds to answer, to respond to the CDM question? It's a very difficult question, so I'm very happy to be trying to answer that. Well, CDM is an abbreviation of clean, something like that, but it's more known as the completely difficult mechanism, because people cannot get through that. So I feel responsible because it's in my office for the last year. I'm happy to report that out of the few dozens that was there, now there was, you did mention a few hundred now, but we are now queuing up in the work board, so I hope that the businesses who are applying for the CDM at this moment will have better treatment for the next year. Well, that is the promise. Thank you.
We have time for one more question, if there is one from the floor. And I see one back here.
My name is Ajit Joy. I'm from the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. We heard several speakers today, including the President, talking about transformational change. And he also said that small things that we do, like switching off our computers and televisions, or using green technology in our homes, can make a big change if millions of people do that. Now, this transformational change that we are discussing here at this seminar is something that is top-down. And transformational change also needs to be bottom up. That is, it has to be adopted by a large number of people. So I'd like to ask the panel, how can this transformational change come? Is it through businesses adopting this top-down approach, policy from the government level, or is it bottom-up when people start getting involved more and more into it? Thank you.
Did you want to start with that?
Okay, that's not an easy one. I'll put that in the bucket of CDM. Hello. Let me tell you the story on what we're doing on food security, okay? And I think it has some relevance to your question. I don't know if all of you know that Indonesians are the biggest consumers of rice in the world on a per capita basis. Okay, we consume 139 kilograms of rice per capita per year, as compared to our brothers and sisters in Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia, who consume a mere 60 kilograms per capita per year. As far as I recall, we all eat rice, but I didn't know that I'm eating double the amount of rice that the Thais, the Vietnamese, and the Malaysians are. This has an effect on the environment. Now, what the government is in the midst of doing, or trying to do, is basically altering the supply side and the demand side of the food equation, okay? As far as the supply side, we all know that, we're trying to ramp up productivity of rice from the mere 6 tons per hectare to what the Malaysians, the Thais, and the Vietnamese are doing. They're doing about 11 or 12 tons per hectare. And on the demand side, I think we've got to be very much more proactive in altering the behavior of people so that they don't continue consuming rice at 139 kilograms per liter per kilograms per capita per year. And there have been a lot of steps in socializing this. Now, I do believe in the next few years, we will be able to significantly reduce the consumption of rice on a per capita per year basis, hopefully paring that of the Vietnamese and Thais. That to me is transformative. Now I think we can apply a lot of the same steps that we have taken in this type of mechanism to address the food security in our country for purposes of basically establishing a trajectory towards a green economy. And let us not underestimate the power of fiscal view-taking. And I think sooner rather than later, the government will realize that it can be an effective tool in shaping the behavior of people as to go by whatever we want them to go by for the better future of Indonesia. And I think that will happen. And that's basically part or the nuts and bolts of what he meant by the transformative, sequences going forward. I thought I should take a crack at it, but I'll leave the more difficult answer to Paramat.
Okay. Well, actually, I'd like to mention just one phenomena which I happened to witness, was it yesterday, where the Indonesian Business Council for Sustainable Development was launched. That is a sign that the Indonesian businesses are well aware of, to answer the question that the distinguished participant has expressed. It will go from the bottom and up, and I think it will be appreciated by the President because he is very committed in achieving a low carbon growth together with yourself. So we have good news on both sides. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Adam,
Yes, sir.
for example, like our program, especially in Kalimantan Tengah, we try to inform, we try to socialize for our people in order to do not use a fire. Do not use the fire, and because up to now, they know exactly about the how if we use the fire and become not good for environment and also not good for the health, their health, and they know exactly about the environment because we talk about the environment not only now, before we know exactly about the environment. We always use how to make more better our life, and that is why we are lucky as a pilot province, as a RED Plus implementation.
Thank you very much. It's an excellent example of how down to the community and even individual level, everybody has a role to play. I don't want to, would you have a few final brief remarks for us?
Just that, it's maybe a bit of a cop-out, but you obviously need both. You need the top-down and the bottom-up to bring about transformational change. I mean, most of us live in democracies, right? And democracy, per definition, is bottom-up and top-down, bottom-up and top-down. That's a cycle. And we have to work within that, and that's how you bring about change. Now, transformational change requires usually some kind of combination of visionary leadership from the top, being able to frame what the challenge is and put in place a different framework for doing things, whether it's legal or it's the way you articulate what the political agenda is. But just as often, we see that politicians only move when there is a momentum from the voters or from the grassroots for change, like we saw in Egypt. So I think personally that the climate agenda will require both. There's too much inertia in societies around the world today too much vested interest in established ways of doing business, that innovation and momentum from committed entrepreneurs who want to do things differently is not in itself enough. So you need a government that actually sets different rules of the game. Sometimes they will do that, but usually not without strong public pressure and support to make that happen. So you need that combination of factors, I think, to bring about true transformational change.
Great. Thank you very, very much. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of our time for this panel. It's a very important topic, but I'd like to ask all of you to join me in thanking our excellent speakers today.
Thank you.